all these people. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And
if you understand object relations, everything makes sense. Once you understand that.
Oh, really? The stars just fall into you. Everything makes sense. The universe
as far as psychology is concerned.
Everything is wild to say, bro. That's like,
but
bro,
if you have an understanding that the relationships you have with these objects or these mental representations of the people who are important in your life,
phantoms.
That just becomes. I heard this quote when I was a student doing my master's, that we're a sponge up until the age of about 11 or 12, and then we just repeat those things that we learned up until that point. So we absorb.
Did you say 7 or 12?
Up to 12 years old, let's say, adolescence, and that we just carry forward for the rest of our lives. We just repeat the same patterns, and we just the mind seeks familiarity so much to the point at which it does more harm to you, right? The mind will seek familiarity over happiness.
And Jung talks about how the only way to live life is to just keep unpacking the shadow, and eventually you look in the mirror and you go from this, let's say he was a deep intellectual, very rigid and cold and very like strong man, and there's interviews of him saying he could beat up 3 guys at the same time, like a very strong guy, right? But he said later in his life that he had to integrate the play that he didn't have as a child with his grandkids. And he's pretty much talking about like the union of opposites in your mind. For every single problem you have is a union of opposites.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's the integration of the split objects. That's the argument that we'd make it as an object relations therapist. What was that thing you told me about Jung wanting to make his dad happier?
Yeah, there was something where he talked about that he remembers the happiest day of his life, which I could tear up because
this was a sad one. I remember when he told
me. This was a sad one. But actually, if everyone wants their eyes to water, just take a moment right now and think, especially if you're 25, 30 years old, this is going to hit you hard. Close your eyes and imagine the happiest day of your life, because it's probably already happened. And it's when you meditate on that, you don't have the pressures of I need the Ferrari, I need the, because you've already had that day. But the youth, if you say to a 20-year-old, what was the best day of your life? He'll never, ever answer that. He'll always be like, it hasn't happened yet. Or, well, in high school, but if you're 25, 30, it has happened to you. And then you can, in my opinion, that's what made me the greatest worker compared to like a kind of a lazy slob, right? Because for me, the happiest day of my life, I still remember, is the first time I had entertainment money and not like job money. And I took it out on a vacation with someone that would make me laugh. And which it wasn't when I was peaking, like 2023. It was a year before that, which is wild to me that the happiest day of my life was when I first solved my money problem. Because when I solved my money problem early in life, it was always like, you got to get to work or else you can't eat, right? It was like, what did I solve, right? But now it's like, if I can miss like years of work, and you've seen my bank account, right? It's kind of like, whatever. And I know that slows people down. For me, it fucking motivates me. But Jung talked about the happiest day of his life was when he brought the meaning of religion, that his father, who was like very religious, over time, his father, the weight of the world got to him, and he abandoned his Christian faith. And Jung approached it as a religious thing, not a Christian thing. But he pretty much talked about, he was on a boat. He was on his boat, successful, alone, and just resting. And he said his dad died as a nihilist without God. And Jung, he's not like the fucking religious guy and stuff, but he said his life's work became to bring meaning, factual meaning, that God exists. So what his dad lost, he went and fought for the next 40 years of his life. And he always saw it like he gave it to his dad, even though his dad had passed long before this. But he said he completed the shadow that his dad built up over the years. He didn't say this, but I'm just wording it. His dad built up this shadow that made him hate his life. And he kind of like ripped the shadow off, kind of like, Dad, here's a reason to live. But he answered the question after death, which I think a lot of people, when they lose someone, it's over. It's over, it's over. But he approached it as it's never over. It's almost like he metaphysically thought they're living in a timeline where his dad could hear him. And his life's work became to complete something his father had lost that once gave him meaning. So I thought that was like the most poetic shit. Imagine ending your career and saying, I just made money, I made this. But he solved his dad's madness, as in like, hey, Dad, I'm going to bring you hope through actually like through this kind of like scientific way, right? Like a way you can't debate, because who the fuck's going to debate with a genius 9 life path like fucking Jung? But yeah.
I don't want to corrupt that. The way I'm thinking about it is that our parents are supposed to be a safety net, right? They're supposed to protect us against the dangers of the world as we get older and things like that. So you would imagine that there are a lot of people who are afraid to overcome their father, because if they overcome their father, they don't have that
superhero, yeah.
They don't have the protection anymore, the protection that the father served, let's say.
No, but hold on.
So
there is a point where you just grow out of my dad's a superhero thing. Like you realize the word dad is kind of like the divine dad.
I don't know, because to get back to object relations, the object relationship that you have with your father, the internal relationship you have with that idea of a father, and this is why I say Jung and Melanie Klein and Winnicott and Fairbairn and Freud, they all talk about the same stuff. Yeah. The relationship you have with your father will never change. You will always hold on to that template, regardless of how your conscious relationship with your father changes.
Yeah, but I'm saying for most conservatives, they do develop this daddy issues of Trump is the dad, right? Because the divine father adheres to someone who's a billionaire, someone who's like Brad Pitt or some shit like that, but it's usually Trump for the conservatives, right? And I'm saying nothing happened besides aging, where the son goes, they make, their dad is their hero, and then they become an adult, and then that dad hero goes to Trump. But nothing happened. But that's how adults move. Like no one, unless you're like a bitch and you just follow your dad's politics, then you're a fucking bitch, right? Like think about it. If someone grows up and they're just getting spoon fed politics from their parents still at 25, 30 years old, it's kind of like you're supposed to go find this kind of pattern of dad energy. Like you'll find it better than someone telling you, you know?
For sure, yeah.
Like I think of, all right, yeah, too much time on that question. Sorry, guys. Okay. Someone said